In this game of Catan, I get matched up against 3 level 20s. They probably look at me and see me as a rookie, so that already is to my advantage because I think they're going to play nice on me. So let's take a look at the board. I can look right now and see that the wheats are clustered to the top left. Actually, the 4-8 of wheat could be extremely powerful, put you in a great trading position. And also, given the fact that the wheat port is right there, that definitely looks like it has some power. The gray got a little bit greedy and tried to go ahead and grab the ore, which is a good idea as well, and then head on over to the wheat port. Unfortunately, on this board, because wheat is a rare commodity and highly needed, that wheat port isn't likely to stay open. So I go ahead and snag the best ore in the follow-up, and I get a decent brick, decent sheep. So I've actually got 3 resources that are hard to pair up together on this board already snagged, and I have a good availability to go ahead and get wheat and wood in a couple of spots. Now, yellow takes the good sheep and wood and gets a little bit of ore. Green does a very it's a high risk and high reward. I guess very risky. Potentially has good reward possibilities by going on the 8 wheat and 8 ore. If 8s come, he'll do very well. And he already starts out with the trading of wheat. The problem is my second settlement is likely to really hurt his expansion up there in the wheat area. I definitely have to get wheat and I have to get wood. And I need to get really good. I'm hoping to get as good of wheat as possible on this board so I don't have to just rely on trading the whole time. So I went ahead and figured that, doubling up on the wheat right here is good. And it'll leave gray as the last to act in this position where he's going to have so much of the board to choose from. I'm hoping that I can potentially sneak in down below, and sure enough, he takes the wood, brick, sheep just above, and he heads on over to the east side of the island where there's still space. He can head on in and get the 3-1 port, or he can even expand to the sheep and brick spot, which is also extremely powerful, and I'm actually surprised it was left open. So the game's underway. I don't like green's position at this point. They are definitely going to just be banking on the rolls. If the rolls come their way, they can still survive. But at this point, green is probably the lowest on my target radar. Actually, yellow has a difficult strategy as well, starting without brick. If you take a look at who has brick, really, I have a 4 and gray has a 12. And so bricks are going to be hard to come by in this early stage. So I decided at the very beginning, should I go ahead for a port, which I know ports are important, but there's so much of the board available. If I'm the only one with brick right now, I have the potential. If I beat people to the inside of the board, I can really just own the entire center of the island and may not even have to rely on ports as much and just gather resources as they come. So I've already had some nice rolls head my way. The 4s come. I've got myself some just good varieties. Even though I have a lot of wheat in my hand, I am getting enough to allow me to get roads and potentially build my settlement pretty quickly. So that gives me confidence that, with gray making his road going north up to the 3-1 port, that I can just jump in and get this especially good expansion of the 9 brick and 5 and 10 sheep. Now, those resources aren't especially powerful, but I especially love the 9 brick. One, it's going to be a great extra trading resource. I will be harder to block if I head on over and get the brick port on the 8. So this is just a really good expansion for me, and deciding to head into the island, I think, really is to my advantage here early on in the game. Now, I've had my 6 blocked right off the bat. I'm bummed by it because I could have used the 6. I could have already, basically with that roll right there, I could have had my settlement in my hand. But what can you do? You move on. So I got lucky and just got a brick, and now I can go ahead and, if no one trades with me, I still have enough that I can trade my wheat in and expand to that fantastic settlement. So I take a look to see if anyone's open to trades. This is the first part of the game. No one's really traded yet, so you kind of feel it out to see if anybody's even trading. Some games are more trade heavy than others, and so I feel like this one doesn't look like people are as interested, so I go ahead and plop on in and do the bank trade. So that was a big expansion for me right off the bat. I think if you look at where I'm sitting, I really like my position, and I figured that I would start to be a target, and I was actually a little bit surprised that orange on that play didn't come after me right off the bat. They must have specifically been looking for his brick, and I think that's why he went and targeted the gray and green early, because he really needs a brick right off the bat. He can't get brick, and he has to expand to the island, to the center of the island, before I reach the center of the island, and essentially cut off his ability to get brick and to expand. So the advantage right now I have is that I can take my bricks and woods and pretty much go wherever I want, because everybody else is going to be moving rather slowly. Likely green is going to look to upgrade into a city, and gray has the flexibility to do a number of things. They've chosen to go first to a port, and so that's going to slow their progress into the center. So it's if I get the right rolls, I can move into the center and just control the island, control much of the island. And once I reach the center, my outlook is promising. I'll have kind of a well-rounded game where I can go either with the longest road, or I can go with getting some cities if the rolls come my way. Definitely need some more 8s to roll in order to get cities. So green thrives off of 8s, as you can see. So he's already got himself a city on the wheat. I think the choice to go on the wheat is probably a mistake, given the fact that if he gets 2 8s, if you put the city on the ore and then he gets 2 8s from there, he literally already, or it might even be just 1 8. He probably will have another city in his hand. So I think it may have served him a little bit better if he put that city on the ore. So there he got another 8 already. I'm sure he's sitting pretty. He decides to trade for sheep, and I know he has lots of wheat. I'm already looking for some wheat in my hand, given that gives me the potential to get a development card. So I go ahead and offer him a 1-to-1 trade. And actually I do that to kind of build rapport with green and whoever else I might be trading with early on. I don't want to show that I'm greedy. If I'm showing that I'm greedy, they might see me as a threat. So I'm actually trying to build, your relations early on. So I even though I felt like my sheep could have been pretty valuable to him, he has no way of getting sheep other than trading 2-to-1 wheat. me giving it to him for a fairly fair price and not even asking first for something more greedy, I think is a way of developing your board relationships, which is, an interesting thing to be thinking about in just a little game. And an 8 continues to roll. I don't like that. I did pick up a development card, and now I'm basically I got to get that knight off of my 6 so I can continue to expand. They were right to block that wood because it is hindering my expansion capabilities. So right now I'm eyeing that brick port, obviously. But in the back of my mind, I saw that green picked up a development card. And what I think of instantly is green could, if they get the right cards, they could have picked up a road building, and they desperately need to get out of where they are and pick up another settlement. So if they got road building is just the best card for them at this point. If they got road building, the move that they should do is go back onto that 8 and take that brick port from me, because right now I'm looking like a pretty big threat, and they can really slow my progress down if they can go back and steal that expansion. So I'm definitely eyeing green, because I know that for my long-term game, I absolutely have to get that brick port. So I not only block him to slow him down, and then I also steal from him. And even though pretty much everyone is a little bit even, green got their expansion into the center, so now they have the capability of getting brick. Gray has a 3-1 port, and really in the long-term game probably has the best setup as the biggest threat. They now have another good brick source in the 9. They have the 6 wood shared with me, the 8 wheat, and the 5 sheep. So they pretty much have good numbers on all the resources. They can be a very complete game threat. So here, as I steal from green, I actually was looking to try and get a wheat. I thought I had counted his cards, and for some reason when I took from him, I was fairly certain he still had a wheat in his hand, but unfortunately I counted wrong, and he didn't have a wheat, and I ended up getting a card I didn't need. So I'm looking to see if I can snag a wheat from somebody else. Unlikely that anyone's going to be willing to trade. Gray does. So Gray shows me right off the bat that he's looking to be a bit greedy. And even though I know I'm giving him an absurd trade, I see that green has now has 2 cards. So I'm especially concerned that I need to get this port, because it really is the key to my future. So I go ahead and make the trade with him, even though I felt like I gave too much, and I'm giving it to probably my biggest competitor at this point. But it's you sort of have to weigh your options and choose: are you going to go ahead and wait another round, or are you feeling like this will really take your game up the next level? And I felt like, now having a 9 and a 4 brick and getting that extra ability to get more ore, which is going to hopefully allow me to build my city quicker. Because now if I build a city, I figure I'll be close to unstoppable. So interesting to me, I was a little bit surprised at what just happened. Gray decided to come in towards the middle rather than focusing on building a city. Now, I don't know exactly what he had in his hand, but I actually suspected that he would go ahead and look to power up by building a city pretty early. And instead, he started to focus in towards the middle of the island. And of course, I don't like that. And he might have done that because he's trying to stop my long-term game, which would be to build the road right through the middle of the island and control the longest road that way. So unfortunately, it means that he's becoming a bigger nuisance to me, because if he's able to build on the 6-3-11, he's essentially going to lock himself to have longest road and really just become the main target in the game. Fortunately for me, I hadn't shown any interest into expanding exactly where he was going there on the 6-3-11. So he decided not to target me yet. He decided to target the orange. And again, that kind of surprised me, given I already have a decent port. I'm looking to upgrade to a city, and if I just get a couple 8s, I basically have it in my hand. I'm pretty close. And so I would have thought he would have been a little more aggressive right at this point to try and stop me from upgrading to a city, and also to stop me from fighting him for that 6-3-11 expansion that he's heading to. I already have one road heading that direction. So I have the Year of Plenty. So this is what I expected him to do. I expected him to cover this 8 ore and steal from me, which he does. And so this was fully expected, because what I am trying to do, I have my Year of Plenty, and I have a lot of options. Of course, I have 4 settlements, and I know that I do not want to build another settlement and then be stuck with guys targeting me and waiting to build a city. It's too easy to slow someone down when they get to that point, and I don't want to be a target and where somebody can easily stop my expansion, my capabilities. So I really don't want to use a Year of Plenty to build another settlement. I don't want to get myself too far in front without having a city. So that's really in the back of my mind. Unfortunately, right now, you can see I'm stuck with 2 bricks and 5 sheep. So I don't have a lot of options. I'm just going to see if I can start snagging snagging ores from people. And of course, Gray desires to get more for the ore, which is probably makes a lot of sense. But 1, I don't want to trade with Gray too much. 2, it's not even something I have to offer, so it didn't make sense anyway. So really, I'm right at the edge, because I have 2 bricks. I can trade them in for a wheat. I have 4 sheep. I can trade that in for an ore, and then I have the Year of Plenty. So really what I have in my hand right now, I already have a city. So the what I either figure is, do I want the city, or do I need to make an aggressive move and block Gray? And that is the big decision at this point. So here's the thought process. Gray, if they get this center position and they build a settlement there, they're at a lock for the longest road, and my game then becomes development cards and cities and trying to get the largest army, which I may still be able to do, but then Gray has the potential to really get a victory. So I think about this for a little bit, but as I weighed my options, I felt like giving up on a city at this point in the game is more important, because what I get out of it is Gray essentially has to really regroup. This slows them down so much, and I leave myself in a very simple way to get the longest road. And buying a development card, now I'm keeping myself in the mix with development cards. It wasn't my original strategy given my setup, But I sort of have a well-rounded game, so I have the flexibility of doing a number of things. I like to buy development cards, especially when I'm a target, rather than sitting and waiting with cards in my hand and to likely get them stolen anyway. So as you can see, I'm already, any 7 that gets rolled, I'm going to be targeted. I'm going to lose my cards. So even though right now that I am now at 5 settlements and I'm forced to build a city, the downside is I'm easy to be blocked, but the upside is that my strategy of blocking gray, although it was primarily defensive, and I like to balance out both doing defensive moves as well as offensive moves. This particular move was both defensive, primarily defensive, to stop gray's long-term growth, and then it also has the double whammy of being offensive in the fact that by defensively blocking gray, I'm allowing myself to offensively have a better shot at taking over the longest road. And when I coupled those two, that made me make the decision a little bit easier to go ahead and block that expansion for gray rather than just trying to build a city. Once again, a 7 is rolled, and I have been targeted a bunch, and I think gray maybe took a little bit of leniency on me, or they may have counted on the fact that what they could get from Emil probably could have helped give him a city. So gray puts himself back into contention by upgrading that city, the 8-3-10 wheat, ore, and wood spot. And this blocking of Emil is pretty much, it's really going to hurt him. So I'm pretty happy right now, actually. The one thing I see in my hand right now is, as a 6 gets rolled, I really need a city. It's city time. But at the same time, I do have 2 knights. I have a knight in my hand. I have the opportunity to go ahead and play my knight. Now, this is a kind of an important decision right now. So Emil has 2 knights. He has 1 development card. I have 2 knights. I have 1 development card, and I act before him. If I go ahead and play my knight to get ahead of Emil and take the largest army, it puts myself at 7 points. But the fact is that I have 7 points, but I have to get a city on this turn. And so my contemplation right here is, if I play my knight, I have to guarantee that what I pull will ultimately give me my city. And my issue is I think Bashful has a wheat in his hand. And since he only has 1 card, if I played my knight, I'd be guaranteed to get the wheat. However, if I go ahead and play the knight, then that puts me at 8 cards. And then if a 7 is rolled, I lose half my hand. And that is then grabbing the wheat doesn't do any good for me. And it still doesn't give me a city, even if it was a wheat. So ultimately, I have to decide right now is, 1, if I play my knight, will it guarantee that I get the city? Because I don't mind playing the knight and getting ahead as long as I already have a city built, because then I feel like I can be strong enough that they can't stop me from going ahead and walking away with the victory. However, if I play the knight and go up to 7 points and I don't build a city, I don't feel like I'm at a strong enough position that they couldn't just block my 8 or block my wheat, and therefore not allowing me to get the city that I need in order to finish off the game. Because right now, if I go ahead and build a knight, I still have to get longest road, and I still have to figure out another way to get 1 more point. So I'm sort of at a point where I almost can't play my knight, and I have to let Emil take the lead. And my decision is to allow him to go ahead and play his knight and take the largest army at this point, and have to play a little bit of a longer game, allow him to be the target for a bit, and then ultimately recovering and getting him afterwards. So 6 is rolled. I do have now 4 wood. If I can somehow either trade sheep for wheat, which I'm contemplating if there's someone out there that would be willing to trade. I don't think they want to give me a city, so they're holding off. And I'm contemplating playing my knight. I'm figuring Bashful has, if he did have a wheat, he just picked up 1 wood. Now I have a 50-50 shot of getting that wheat. I decide that I'm going to go ahead and buy another development card, with the idea that if I got a victory point, pretty much any development card is good for me. If it's a knight, I needed another extra knight to be able to overtake Emil. And surprisingly, Emil didn't play a knight. So that was actually pretty good news for me. It means that he probably has a victory point sitting there, but it allows me to hold off on my playing of the knight card until I feel like it's ready. Bashful did me a service, took me down to 7 cards. However, he sees that if I had a victory point in my hand, then I could potentially play my knight, build 1 road, and have the victory in hand. So he correctly did the right thing to go ahead and take the longest road, forcing me to have to build 2 roads, which I actually have 2 roads in my hand. So if that other knight that I had just bought was a victory point, I would have the game in my hand. Unfortunately, it wasn't a victory point, which means I have a little bit more work to do, but I'm right at the edge. So there is potential here that I can sneak in and get a quick victory without having to even work in the later stages. And this is kind of a middle stage victory, I feel like, rather than working hard when everybody is up in the higher numbers. So what I decide to do is to go ahead, and now that I have an extra knight to help defend myself if somebody was to see me as a target, I go ahead and steal from Emil. And now here I decide, should I go ahead and build my city? Which I can't do, but I can buy 1 more development card, and the development card is golden. It is exactly what I need. It is my victory point. So now, even though I couldn't build a city, I can have my victory without having to build a city. All I need to do is overtake the longest road. So I have 3 woods in hand. I have the best chance of getting bricks. I have another development card in hand, but I don't even care about that. All I care about is trying to get longest road. And what rolls? Oh, the absolute worst roll for me. Gray gets a 12, so he gets 2 brick, and I don't get any brick, so which allows him, if he wants to build 2 roads. I believe he could have built 2 roads. Maybe he didn't have another wood. I'm not sure what just happened. I thought he could build 2 roads. At any rate, another 7 is rolled. I have 7 resources, and I go ahead and continue to steal from Emil, leaving the impression that I'm not trying to go up against Bashful as much. Also, I think if Emil really, because he just bought a development card, he's likely to go ahead and play it. So again, I don't want to hold on to a whole lot of cards. I'd rather go ahead and use it if I can for development cards. Really right now, everything I'm doing is trying to focus on getting the longest road. And luckily what I pull is Year of Plenty. Year of Plenty is flexible enough to allow me to, to squeeze in longest road without having to show that I have a lot of cards. So right now I have 2 roads using 2 of my woods and then the Year of Plenty for 2 bricks. So as long as I get one more, I still am waiting on one more card. So he, rather than building a road, goes ahead and builds a settlement. And I count again. Yep, 6, sure enough. He has 6, I have 4. So I still am right at the edge. So he did have a lot of wood in his hand. He could have built an extra road with that brick, but he decided to wait and to build a settlement. And interestingly, even though I don't have cities, I have an incredible distribution of numbers. I have all numbers ranging from 3 up to 11. 3 gives me 1 card, 4 gives me 2 cards, 5 gives me 1, 6 gives me 2 cards, 8 gives me 2 cards, 9 gives me 1 card, 10 gives me 2, 11 gives me 1. And so pretty much I'm guaranteed to get something. And having Year of Plenty already in my hand, I feel like I can at least do something on this turn. I'm so close. So all I need to do is really just get one little card, and luckily a 11 rolls, and that happens to give me, sure enough, something I can work with. 1 sheep, and with that sheep I can ultimately trade it in for that extra brick, and that gives me, with the Year of Plenty, the chance to get 3 roads. So I probably should have gone ahead and write GG. I had tried to do something like this before, and then because I'm new at this game, I played so slowly that I almost timed out, so I decided not to potentially time out, and I went ahead and did the work first to trade in for my 3 roads, and then if I can go ahead and place it, spend the time and drop it, this should be game. And that's it. So these guys, unfortunately, things didn't work out for them. I sort of got lucky in a few rolls here and there, but ultimately I think the initial placements worked out to my favor, especially green taking the 8 spot. It really slowed down Gray's game by taking these spots, and ultimately, even though he was a non-factor, his defensive positioning actually helped me out more than anything. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed that game. Let me see. What are some takeaways from that one? This initial spot, when I turned around essentially from my initial plan of going to the ports and off to the coast, this is one thing to make sure you're always considering, is even if you potentially may delay and waste an initial road by turning yourself around, I would say if you feel like you have the resources and you're not really causing a huge conflict early on, assess what's an opportunity early on that can completely change and transform the entire game, by going to a new spot that you may not have considered, or you may have ultimately expected that it would have been blocked early on. I would say usually it is correct that you shouldn't build your 5th settlement before you get a city on the board. However, there is always time to evaluate your options and to decide that the value of the 5th settlement is either just such an ideal spot, maybe it brings in more ore, maybe it gives you a port, or maybe it's defensive, maybe it ultimately is more powerful in a defensive mindset, and ultimately this particular move is both defensive and offensive for me, so it was ultimately should have been a no-brainer just to go ahead and do it, but I was so hesitant because I did not want to lock myself into 5 settlements, and ultimately I decided to bend on what I typically advise against. Finally, when assessing your possible win possibilities, I personally find it okay if you consider buying a development card and getting a victory point as a potential winning opportunity. It's not guaranteed, but often just purely buying a development card can lead to a victory point, either on that turn by getting a victory, or ultimately by getting a card that can produce a victory within the next round. So development cards, in my opinion, are definitely worthy of victory point considerations and could be included in your path towards victory. Finally, there's one little advantage to not building cities early on, is that you really have, it's harder to target you and block you because you don't have one main source of all your resources coming in. You're sort of just getting little bits here and there, and that's a little harder to defend against. With knights, it's a little harder to monopolize, and ultimately without cities, it's just a different way to go about winning. Don't do it very often. Often you'll at least have 1 or 2 cities, and but occasionally it happens to work out where the competitors allow your 5 villages to compete in a way that ultimately allows you to get what you need to get the victory without having a city. Not very often, but it happened to work this time.